Let us read this passage, these verses from Exodus chapter 14 responsibly. I will begin reading verse 9. But the Egyptians pursued after them all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea beside Pi-hahiroth before Baal-zephon.
And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord.
And they said unto Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt?
Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it hath been better for us to serve the Egyptians than we should die in the wilderness.
And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he shall show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever.
The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace.
Let's read verse 15 together.
And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward.
Many of us are quite familiar with this passage from the book of Exodus, which records God's mighty act in the parting of the Red Sea, where we can see the greatness of God's power to deliver his people. And as we think of the situation that the children of Israel at this point of their exodus, we find the children of Israel, no doubt, in such a situation that we may call into this language as lockdown. For as you can see in verse 9, we find them caught up in between Pharaoh's army and the edge of the Red Sea. In other words, if we are to look at their situation and their condition, they were indeed trapped, caught up in between the pursuing soldiers of Egypt, the chariots of Pharaoh, and placing them in a situation where there is no way out for them. Because they were, as we can see in verse 9, at the edge of the sea. In other words, before them were the pursuing chariots of Pharaoh, and behind them, there seemed to be no way of escape for them. That as we ponder upon this situation, mga kigsunan, if we call it in today's language, they are locked down. Kanato siguro nga mga medyo may edad na and familiar with our language in our dialect, nakita nato nga daw sila natanggong. Wa gid sila kapaingnan, ug wa gid sila kadaganan, ug wa gid sila kalutsan. And lo and behold, in such a situation where there was no way out in sight for them, I want us to notice how the people reacted. I want us to notice how the people responded taliwa sa ilahang sitwasyon. As I have said, if we can use today's language, I want us to look at how the people responded, how the people behaved in the midst of their so-called lockdown. Worth noticing here is their response was not so good a response. If you can look at verse 10, and when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched up to them, and what? They were sore afraid. Nalisang sila sa ilahang paghangad, sa ilahang paglantaw. Now, this will give us a picture that they were actually right there in the lowlands, in the valley. nga diin diha sa ubos, niya makita na din nila ang Red Sea, makita na to nga sa paghulagway diha nga ang mga kasundaluhan ni Pharaoh mura ba og nagdulhog padung dito sa tubig o padung dito sa kilid sa dagat. Nga naman, kiningon man diha, they lifted up their eyes ato pa sa ilahang paghangad. Sa ilahang paghangad nakita nila nga ang what? Chariots, horses and chariots of and horsemen, the Egyptians, no? Behold the Egyptians march after them. And look at how they respond. They were sore afraid. In other words, they feared greatly. Grabe ang ilahang kahadlok. Grabe ang ilahang kalisang. Grabe ang ilahang kanang kabalaka diha sa ilahang kasing-kasing. Then we move on. And behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And then what? Last part of verse 10. And the children cried out. No, the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. Now, before we consider this, nganingon nga they cried out, yes, they may have cried for help, but it was not a cry of faith and cry of believing, but rather it was a desperate or a distress call. Kanabang sama kanato karon nganingon nga Lord, unsa naman ni? Muna nga mata nga pagsangpit. It was not a cry that, Lord, have mercy upon us and help us. But rather, it was a kind of a complaining cry. Now, why do I say that? Yes, oftentimes, when we look at the word, he cried unto the Lord, especially in the Psalms, yes, it often refers to the psalmist crying unto the Lord for help, prayer, for deliverance, yes. The same way here, but their cry is not much of believing and pleading, but rather a kind of complaining. Sama ba nga moingon ka nga, Lord, unsa naman eh? Why do I say that? Kaya nga naman, after they cried unto the Lord in the last part of verse 10, look at verse 11, they complain unto Moses. Now, kung ang ilahang pagsangpit sa Ginoo is believing and trusting cry unto the Lord, they will not be complaining against Moses. But look at what they did in verse 11. And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Maod ni Moses, tungod kay wa may lugar dito nga kalugnan nimo kanamo dito sa Egypt, gidamo nimo diri sa kawanangan. Gidami diri sa kahanawan nga mamatay mi kung dili diha sa mga espada, mga bangkaw sa sundalo sa Egypt. Mamatay kami maluno diha sa tubig sa Red Sea. Now, what I want us to see in here is how the people of Israel responded. Now, please bear this in mind. Una, they were sore afraid. Ikalawa, they cried and complained unto the Lord. Ikatulo, they complained against Moses. And as we describe and reflect upon all these responses, it will bring us to one conclusion, that in this point of time, the children of Israel were indeed in great panic. They were in great panic when they saw the Egyptians pursuing them. And that we find them complaining against God and complaining against Moses. Now, muhunong tagkadilat mga igsoon. I want us to reflect and ponder upon these responses of the people of Israel here. Are they not familiar to you? Are we not familiar with the responses? Pause for a moment. Ako nagtuo that this is how many of us may have reacted when we heard the news last night that all our quarantine pass are suspended. And when we heard of the news that we are to be placed under a tighter and a more strict, enhanced community quarantine. Consider for a moment. Ganiha, I mentioned the responses, right? 3 responses. It could be that we have responded the same way when we heard of the news last night. We may have responded in fear. Or ikalawa, we may have responded crying unto the Lord in complaint, Lord, kanusta pa man gining mahuman? Or we may have responded complaining against the leadership. In the case of Israel, they complained against Moses. Perhaps diya sa itong kasing-kasing, ang ato ang magong mayor, ang ato ang magong mga leader, ang ato ang magong tanan nga pwede na itong manganlag o mahinungduman, mo'y atong gihimo nga unod sa ato ang complaint. Or perhaps our responses or our reaction may not be just one of the 3, but rather we may have responded all of the above. We were scared, and we complained against God, and more we complained against our leaders. That's why I ask, are we not familiar with the responses of the people of Israel? I hope by now you are able to really find yourself bitaw, no? I wonder how many of us last night, sa diha nga nakapasata o sa diha nga nakadungog tanga, ni sangpitas Ginoo nga, Lord, your will be done, or Lord, be merciful to us. Gani mga kaigsunan, like many of the people in the world, putting that hana dayon. Remember social media, the comment, the complaint, the criticism. Isn't it true? That I can only pray and wonder that we were not among them. Now let's face it, and so be it. Even when we may be guilty of responding and reacting the same way as the children of Israel here in our text, but I trust that we be quick to be reminded in our hearts, I should not be responding this way. I should not be reacting this way. But true, I am with you. Human as we are, we can so easily succumb to the flesh. And when we succumb to the flesh, we oftentimes give in the fear of the flesh. We fear what man can do unto us. We fear what circumstances we may bring unto us. Very much like the people of Israel. Yes, like the people of Israel, we may have been scared or perhaps anxious, or we may have been desperate to cry unto the Lord, what now, Lord? Hangtod ka na sa manin? Or we may have complained against our government leaders. Or we may have responded all of the above. Not just one of the 3, not just 2 out of 3, but 3 of 3. I am with you, mga kaigsunan, but I pray nga unta taliwa nining tanan, padayon kitang magkat-on ba o kung saan na to kapag respond nga diha sa ato ang kasing-kasing, dili kita nga magkanunay nga mahugno, dili kita kanunay nga malisang, dili kita kanunay nga mahadlok, nga daw sama ba murag after all that we have been through, murag wa gyud kundi ay mutubo ang atuang pagtuo o pagsalig sa Ginoo. And so with that, mga kaigsunan, I'd like us to consider here. Now we have looked at the people's response. Now, in the midst of panic, in the midst of all this chaos, in the midst of all this crisis and trouble that the people of Israel are facing and dealing with at this point of their exodus, I'd like us to consider how Moses responded. Remember? One and the same situation nga ilahang giatubang, but different reaction, different responses. As for the general public, in other words, as for the general, the whole of the people of Israel, they responded as we have considered. They were sort of afraid, and they were desperate and in distress, calling upon the Lord, and they complained against Moses. Now, I'd like us to consider how Moses responded. Come down now to verse 13. Taliwa sa tanan nga iyahang giatubang. Remember, they were together. Moses is never in an advantage. Moses is never in an advantage point that he would appear safer and more protected than the rest of the people of Israel. They were all together. In fact, it was Moses who brought them out of Egypt and lead them up until this point of their wilderness or their exodus, even prior to their crossing of the Red Sea. Meaning, they were in the same situation. Pareha sila giatubang, pareha sila kahimtang, pareha sila nahiaguman. They experienced the same experience. In other words, wa makalamang si Moses. But what I want us to see in here is, in the midst of the general response of the people that is filled with fear, with complaining, and in distress and in desperation, I want us to notice Moses' response to the same situation. Verse 13. Look on. And Moses said unto the people, look at the first, fear ye not. Okay pa kayo, ha? Unya, the next, stand still. And then sunod, and see the salvation of the Lord. Now, the word salvation here refers to deliverance. In other words, it's just like Moses telling the people, see for yourself how the Lord will deliver you from the hands of Pharaoh. See for yourself how the Lord will open up a way for you. Just when you think there seemed to be no way. Now, I want us to notice how Moses here comforted not only himself, but most of all, how Moses comforted the people. Gani mga kaigsunan usay mga pamalandong sa taba nga kanindot ug ingon ani po reaction ang atong mga leader bitaw nga kalisan nalisan sa sila nalisan sa taba. Fear ye not. Kanindot kay no? Fear ye not. Stand still. Kana bang assuring words nga dakon kita sa higpit nga pagtuo dili kanila o silahang mga abilidad kun dili higpit nga pagtuo ngadto gyud sa atong Ginoo. Tanawa pag-ingon diha, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Now, look closely at the words of Moses in here. Nga naman, for if we look closely at the words of Moses, these three phrases that I am bringing to your attention is actually the antidote, ang pangontra sa tanan nga reaction sa katawhan sa Israel. Remember, the first reaction, they were sore afraid. Di ba? They were sort of afraid. So the antidote for fear is what? Fear not. One time, verse 13. In other words, in verse 13, Moses was giving the people of Israel the antidote of how they feel. In other words, you should not feel that way. You should not fear. Nga naman, kaya ang first reaction is they were in great fear, right? They were sort of afraid. And so the antidote, the remedy, the cure sa ilaha nga kahimtang o ilahang gibati silang kasing-kasing is to what? Comfort and assure. Fear ye not. And then, ikalawa, they were not comfortable. They were restless. They were uncomfortable. They were restless. They were disturbed. They were in distress. They were in desperate time that they call upon the Lord, Lord. Daw, atong ihulagway sa Binisaya, nagkaguliyan o nalisan ang mga tao. And what was the antidote? Stand still. Putting it in today's language in English, it simply means be calm. And if you can remember, that is how I shared with you last night. Stay calm. Just have to stand still. You know what? Like the people of Israel, we are also children of Israel. Children of God, God's children, God's people. But we cannot help it when unexpected times, uncertainties come in, ngadiin, so that I am sure. Dali po dahil nga nakareact ko niya, ato ang reaction mo, dili kaayo kanang kuan. Gaya, I remembered kagabi because we were joining the prayer meeting of our mother church. And after Pastor Koshi's parting words, after the last prayer, the closing prayer, he did mention about the church building fund here in Cebu and all this that he wanted to have it accomplished. And right after that, when we signed out from the account, all of a sudden we saw in the social media all these notifications and breaking news na all the colors of our quarantine pass. Ibutang ko niya, effective 10 p.m. tonight. So I told my wife, hala, ispituhon na gid ang ato ay na kuan kining kanang ECQ tomorrow. And so I realized na I'm sure ang atong mga kaigsunan would indeed react in a different way, in diverse manner. Ang uban siguro diverse manner, ang uban siguro gamay kabalaka, ang uban dako nga kabalaka, ang uban dako nga hadlok, ang uban kalisan, kagulian. Nakuha na to. But just the same fear in different levels. Murag, praise God kung ano may pag-react na bulisod. Lord, be merciful to us. Ikay bahala. Thank God. But when I realized, I noticed it, even before I posted that in our group messaging, when I encouraged you all about all this, I did call up our brother Alan and check with him all these things. And just as he said, maningid na sa pastor. And which is true. That is how we should bear and deal with this crisis or with this situation. Kaya nga naman, yes, wala siguro usa ka nato or even bisan sa mga tao diha sa kalibutan ang wa makurate. Di diha mismo nga desisyon, diha ura mismo. Arang-arang lang gani earlier this morning I had a conversation with Deacon Samuel and we were talking of the same issue nga mayroon dato sa buntag sa Martes sa sayo nga ni-anunsyo nga karong alas 10 sa gabi kutob ang effectivity sa ato ang quarantine pass kay murag at least katibok adlaw sa Martes makapanglihok-lihok patag unsay atong panglihok-lihok ko, di ba? Pero what happened is that diha na desisyonan, effective diha dayon. So I'm sure ang tanan na kuratan. Unya diha sa pagkakurat mao lagi na we resorted to commenting, and then our commenting would go into complaining. Gani mga kaigsunan, gatan-aw mi atong sanay nga kanang super balita live na naabit tayo magsigig news diha nga reporter. Wala ka pusok-pusok, commenting, kanang mga comment ba nga up to date, real time nga makabot. That simply means that everyone is caught by surprise, and not only caught by surprise, everyone is shocked. We are much like the people of Israel. We were sore afraid, we responded in fear, and that we cried unto the Lord in desperation, Lord, how? Lord, what? And then, the more obvious, we complain against our leaders. Now, I am not bearing any political colors, mga kaigsunan, but I just want to put things in a biblical perspective. It's not na we take side with, mga kaigsunan. Kita nga mga kaanakan sa Ginoo dinhi sa kalibutan, we are to submit to authorities, we are to yield, we are to honor, we are to reverence, in fact. No? Some portions of Scripture even use the word reverence them who are in authority. And that means, regardless of they may be your ideal government official or not, but the fact that they are there functioning. And even when they may not have done well, despite of all their efforts and best of their efforts, the Bible tells us that we are to what? Be subjected to them. In fact, if you are not able to bring yourself to commending them, be careful that you will not come down to condemning them. Instead, as God's people, we ought to be praying for them. No. What is happening around? I'm sure you're all well updated nga, how I wish mapalit to atong daan nga mayor, how I wish mo na lain. Daghan kayo niya. Kita ra ba karon kay naalangitan sa lockdown, we're all exposed to all this. And we can help. Nga niya itong makita, we've been bombarded with this. And oftentimes kita po murag masaka po ng atuang nga kanang emosyon. Magka-ingon pa nato nga magkaana sa ato ang kasing-kasing. Magkalaing po ta. Now, let's guard our hearts. Remember, we may be in this world, but we are not of this world. Yes, while we are citizens of this world, but our ultimate citizenship is in heaven. Yet, we are mandated na samtang naapata kita dito sa kalibutan, we must bear witness and testimony and yield ourselves and submit ourselves to those in authority. And so, with that mga kaigsunan, let us learn from here nga diin, while the people, yes, they did not just respond in fear, they did not just cry in desperation unto the Lord, they complained against Moses. Maoday ni, tanawa na ko ng ilahang gisulti diha in verse 12. Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians, that we should die in the wilderness. In other words, their tendency is to look back. May pamantong si Kuan nga mayor, may pamantong si Kuan nga Kuan. We look back. And you know what? Sayre, nga kanang atong nga leader na nakakaroon sa posisyon, dili yun na sila makakuputan ang posisyon na kung dili nga kagabuton sa Ginoo nga sila mabutang diha. That means, the moment and each time you succumb to this kind of attitude in your heart, you're actually complaining against God. You're not satisfied. While it is true, each one of us, you're entitled with your own sentiment, whether you are satisfied or not. But even when you are not satisfied, rather than making it open and vocal, pray in your heart, Lord, help this government official to improve and be better. And in so doing, kung mulambong man din, masatisfied ka diha sa inyong kasing-kasing. Kaya lagi, as I have been reminding you often, we are so influenced by what is happening today. Ngayon, April lagi ni mo anang. Very subtle kayo ng social media. Kaya April gini mo ang una gila tanang pangutana, what's on your mind? It entices you. Nga, og naamang kay ganahan nga itubag siguro na nga mungutana, may siguro may thankful to the Lord for this day. Rejoicing in the Lord for His goodness. But what often do you find there? Wow, angry, disappointed, frustration, grrr. Yes, remember, while we are in the world, let's be reminded that we are not of this world. We are not to conform to the world. And so, we need to consider here the antidote. And you know, this antidote, nga itong makita din ha, is also the manner of how Moses responded to the situation. Iyahalang gi-share nga to sa uban. And so what? Fear ye not, stand still, and then ikatulo, see the salvation of the Lord. You know, you don't complain against me. I'm just obeying the order of the Lord to bring you out of Egypt and bring you here. As we go along to our wilderness, wandering. And thus, Moses here brings to the people's attention that yes, while you are in this very difficult situation of your life, please know that it is in the midst of this that you will be able to see for yourself and witness and experience for yourself the deliverance of the Lord. You know what? Sa mga sitwasyon na sama niini, diha na itong matagamtaman pag-ayo, ang kaayo sa Ginoo. Kaya sa kaayo sa itong ginabuhi, di man tayo maka-appreciate sa tanang mga pagliyok sa Ginoo. It is when we are in the most difficult time of our life nga diin ma-appreciate it nato ang paglihok sa Ginoo diha sa ato ang mga kinabuhi. And that is what Moses is telling the people here. See that the salvation of the Lord, look at this, which he shall show to you today. And what is it all about? Those men that you are afraid of, you will see them no more. Look at that. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, nga naman, kay di ba mauni hinungdan sila ang kahadlo? Mauni ang hinungdan silang mga kabalaka? Mauni ang hinungdan silang mga kalisan? And look at what Moses here said. The Egyptians who you have seen today, ato ni siya i-rephrase, the Egyptians whom you have been scared of, ingon diha, you shall see them again no more forever. Now, ako nagtuo nga sa ilahang pagkadungog nini, many things have been working in their minds. Perhaps they were complaining and questioning Moses in their minds, saon sa mang pagiha, unsaon man nato ni pagkigaway, unsaon man pag-deliver sa Ginoo nato, nga wa man tay mga armas. They come with their spears and arrows and swords and on their chariots. How are we going to fight them? And you know what? Sa ato ang pagpanultihon, mura ba giingon ba nga naa na nadaan sa pahak ni Moses? Nga naman, the next phrase so goes, look at the next phrase. The Lord shall fight for you. Just when you think of fighting back the Egyptians, no, you don't. Just when you think of how you can fight back the Egyptians, no, you don't. And Moses, as I have said, just when they may be thinking of all these things, contemplating, nakat na insultis mo, saan ko na ito, kikaway yan eh. Sa pinugoy na ito, nga kanang panultihon, nga naan na spahagdaan, nga naman, kaningon na si Moses, the Lord shall fight for you. What does it say? What does it tell us? It tells us that it is not about us. It's all about God. It is all about Him. Nga naman, ingon niya, the Lord shall fight for you. And then what? And you know, you look at the last part. Ye shall hold your peace. Wow. Remember, they were in the midst of great panic, right? And yet, Moses here giving them the antidote. Fear ye not, stand ye still, see the salvation of the Lord, which He will show you today. For the Lord shall fight for you. And in seeing all this taking place and happening right before your eyes, this is what you are going to experience. And what is it? Ye shall hold your peace. Amazing, isn't it? Wonderful, isn't it? But you know what? This can only be experienced by those who would really put their trust and confidence in God. Look again in verse 13 and notice those phrases. Fear ye not, stand still, and then what? And see the salvation of the Lord. Then, verse 14, the Lord shall fight for you. Now, another thing I'd like us to notice here, mga kaibigan, is how Moses brings to the attention of the people of Israel the name of the Lord. I want us to notice the word Lord there in all capitals. In verse 13, see the salvation of the Lord, capital L-O-R-D. In verse 14, the Lord shall fight for you, capital L-O-R-D. Verse 15, and the Lord, capital L-O-R-D. Now, whenever we come across this all caps word Lord in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament times, it actually refers to the covenant name of God. It emphasizes the covenant name of God. And whenever the covenant name of God is emphasized, it brings much comfort and assurance to His people. Nga naman, what does the name Lord means? Yes, the name Lord means the covenant name of God. And what is the covenant name of God? The covenant name of God is Yahweh or Jehovah. It is God's personal name. It is an exclusive name of God. And it is very significant because this covenant name of God denotes, among others, this one particular truth about God, that He is a faithful God. Now, the fact that He is a covenant-keeping God, that means He is faithful, for He will keep His covenant. Yes, that's one of the many that you would need to be reminded of when we refer to the name of God. Yes, when the name of the Lord is mentioned, it reminds us of His covenant with Israel, that He is a covenant God of Israel, that He is the Redeemer of Israel. Remember when the Lord appeared to Moses, it was all because he was reminded of the covenant he had made with Abraham. So, being a covenant-keeping God, He is faithful to keep His covenant. Putting it another way, He is a faithful God that will indeed keep all His promises unto His people. And that is what we see in here. Moses could have used, God will fight for you. See the salvation of God. See the salvation of God, and God will fight for you. And then what? The command of God. Pwede. Pero lahi ang emphasis when it is the name Lord. Because behind that name is that character of God that I believe Moses wants to emphasize to the people, that He is a faithful God. He is an unchanging God. Gani mga kaisunan, you will find this in the entire Old Testament. That God's people, in the midst of difficult times, in distresses and in great danger, they will always call upon the name of the Lord, not the name of God. Although they call upon the name of God, nothing's wrong with it, but there is a special emphasis when they call upon the name of the Lord, capital L-O-R-D. Yes, there are passages in the scripture, the Old Testament, that comes in Lord, that is L, capital, then O-R-D, no? Adonai. But this one is the covenant name of God, Jehovah. It's different. It brings about that special emphasis of God's faithfulness. And that is what Moses is trying to tell the people here. The Lord will save you. The Lord will deliver you. The Lord shall fight for you. Now, to better understand this and help us better understand the significance of the Lord, turn your Bibles for a while to Psalm 121. Psalm 121. I think dili pa dugay na latawan nato ni siya, but I want to bring this to your attention again. Look at what the psalmist here said. Verse 1, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help, referring to Jerusalem. Now verse 2, my help cometh from what?
The Lord.
The Lord. Yes, nothing's wrong when he said, my help cometh from God. Pwede gihapon. Pero ila ginang specify nga name of the Lord because this is the covenant name of God. There is something in that name. And look at what he said. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. And then come down to verse 5. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. Again, the Lord. Yes, pwede na itong gamiton God. Pwede. But because there is that special emphasis in the covenant name of the Lord. Then come down to what? Verse 7. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. The Lord. Then verse 8. The Lord shall preserve thy going. It's all about the name of the Lord. While there is nothing wrong if the verse would come with the word God, but for obvious reason, it is the covenant of the Lord here that is used by the psalmist, obviously, for the special emphasis that He is indeed Jehovah God, Yahweh, the God of Israel, the covenant-keeping God, the Redeemer of Israel, and the eternal God and Savior. Now, putting this in application that He is the unchanging God. Now, the fact that He is indeed the unchanging God, it should comfort us. Because if He is faithful unto His people, the children of Israel at that time, you can be rest assured that He remains faithful even unto us, His people today. When Moses here stressed upon the name of the Lord, it was expected that the children of Israel would know its implication. That the Lord can be depended upon, that they can rely on Him, and that they can rest upon Him. Because after all, behind that name, Lord, is His great power, His great might, and of His being unchanging. Iyang pagkaginoog sa iyang pagkadiyos. In fact, if you can turn your Bibles for a while to Psalms 20. Psalms 20 and verse 7. Notice what David here said. Psalms 20 and verse 7, it says, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will what? Remember the name of the Lord our God. Special emphasis, Lord, capital L-O-R-D. Move forward to Psalm 128. Psalm 128. Psalm 124, looking at verse 8. Psalm 124, looking at verse 8. Can we read this together? May I encourage also our brethren in your home to read together with us. Psalm 124 and verse 8. Our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. The name of the Lord. The name of the Lord. The name of the Lord. You will always find this in the Old Testament, particularly in the book of Psalms and some portions of the Proverbs. Now, kaliwan ining tanan natong giatubang mga kaibigan. I want us to consider how Moses here reminded the people of Israel about God and of what God will do to them by bringing to remembrance the name of the Lord. May we also be comforted tonight and even in the coming days. Kaya nga naman, yes, we are in these most uncertain times. We really cannot tell what lies ahead of what would become of us and what is going to happen the next few days, even the next few hours after this. Many things can happen. Yes, we are in the most uncertain times. But one thing remains certain and true in the midst of these most uncertain times. That we have a covenant-keeping God. His name is the Lord our God. He is unchanging, and He will always be faithful unto us, His people. Just as He is faithful to the children of Israel, He would also be faithful unto us. And as we reflect upon the words of Moses here, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Gani mga kaibigan, while the people of Israel have the tendency to look back and would want to go back to history and go back to Egypt, look at what the Lord commanded Moses here in verse 15. And the Lord, remember, look at the name of the Lord again, capital L-O-R-D, right? And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go, what? Forward. You know, that is what we should be doing. You don't regress. You don't look back. You press on. You don't move backward. Move forward. Hindi pa lang lugay, we consider that passage on the book of Jeremiah, right? They go backwards. Don't! Look at what the Lord said. Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. Press on, mga kaitsunan. Padayon, mga kaitsunan. Trusting that the Lord is with you. Fear not. Stand still. And see for yourself the deliverance of the Lord. Unchanging, the covenant-keeping God. And let us take comfort in this unchanging truth of the unchanging God. Bisan pa man, as I have said a while ago, in these most uncertain times, one thing is certain, that our God is faithful and He is unchanging. And that of His being unchanging is an unchanging truth. And so, taliwangin ning ato ang mga giatubang mga kaigsunan, let us take comfort in the name of the Lord our God. The faithful, the covenant-keeping God, the unchanging one. As we love to sing, Thou changest not, Thy compassions they fail not. Remember? As Thou hast been, Thou forever wilt be. What a comfort it is. And I trust that looking at this passage and meditating on this passage tonight sure would encourage our hearts, even comfort us. So padayon na ito nga pagkatubang niining nga krisis karon nato may makanan. Padayon kita. As we look around, surely we will be all troubled. But when we look up to the Lord and look up to Him and in Him alone, surely we will be comforted. May the Lord be merciful to us and help us. Mag-ako tayo ng